Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night for some of you. Obviously, I'm down under in Australia. It is 10 p.m. We have Nick Neitzel. Am I saying
Yes,
that
yeah, it's
correctly?
good.
Neitzel,
Yeah,
awesome,
first
cool.
try.
Obviously, 8 a.m. for you, I think, in the USA.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. All right, so unless you've been living under a rock, right? There's been a big expo recently. It's about 4 weeks ago now, I think. 4 weeks, yeah, something like that. And apart from Stern, obviously taking a majority of the spotlight with X-Men and Metallica, probably the biggest talk with a lot of content creators and a lot of people that attended was Homebrew. And we're going to talk with obviously Nick. You've got probably the coolest or the raddest Homebrew,
Thank you.
which was Tony Hawk Pro. Uh, let's talk a bit about you first. We'll get into the machine in a second. From doing a little bit of reading, you obviously started off tinkering all your life, from what I've read.
Oh yeah. I was begging my dad for a soldering iron before I should have known what a soldering iron was as a kid. Taking apart RC cars. I had Legos, Connects, uh, just constantly making things, and then that progressed as I got older. I got into cars and built a few drift cars, and then um, got into console modding, like retro consoles, then building arcade machines, and then eventually landing on pinball machines.
Yeah.
So
And you did virtual pinball as well, yeah?
yeah, I built a Doom themed
Yeah.
virtual pinball machine. Doom is like my favorite first person shooter of all time. I remember getting terrified as a little kid in in my room on my Windows 95 computer.
Yeah.
So like for a game to stand the test of time like that is awesome. My dog apparently wants in on the interview here, but um yeah, I built a Doom themed one, and
Yeah.
that was kind of practice for the full size one. I wanted to make sure that if I made any mistakes, it was on something that was just a screen and a computer, and not one that was going to be the real deal. So
The real deal, yeah. And how long have you been doing? Obviously, you've been into pinball, right? It's not just a skateboarder who's built a pinball game. When did you get
almost.
into
I
pinball?
mean, I've only been in pinball for like 3 years.
Yeah,
I went to a local arcade about 3 years ago, just on a whim, because I liked arcade cabinets, but I think a lot of pinballers like have the same epiphany when you play a pinball machine, and then instead of just hitting the ball around, you go, oh wait, there's a whole game in here. And then
yeah,
like when that switch flips, that when it did it for me, I was like, oh okay, this is like who I am now. This is going to be my personality now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it was actually here. I'll give him a shout out. Atomic Pinball Arcade
Nice.
in Illinois, Wood River, Illinois.
Yeah, yeah,
So great guys. But the first night there, they were all there. They were, excited that I was excited, and
yeah.
I was like, yeah, I found my people, man. So
It's amazing, isn't it? Because the community, like I've played pinball pretty much all my life, but in the last 5 years, I really got into it. I went kind of on my own, and it's like a sponge, right? Like the community really pulls you in.
oh yeah.
And I've been involved in a lot of different hobbies like retro gaming and car modifying as well. And I must say, the pinball community is probably the most friendliest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a real captivating hobby, sport, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, look, I can totally relate. Same thing here. I went to my local arcade, and then I thought I want to hire some machines at home, see what it's like. And man, when that bug bites, it bites.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean,
That's yeah.
especially with Expo too. Like
Mm,
that was my first Expo. It was my first homebrew ever. And just
yeah,
meeting all those guys in the like community, the word community is thrown around a lot, right? But
yeah,
like holy smokes. I mean, all those guys are friends with each other, friendly, excited for every single person who brought a homebrew. There's an original idea on every single table. Just the positivity that my fiance and I felt when we were there was just like, okay, so we're just going to do this forever too. So, yeah.
she's obviously into pinball, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Our
Yeah,
first
yeah,
date
yeah.
was at another arcade in St. Louis,
Cool.
and the rest is history, man. So
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's to think about it. 3 years, man. You obviously played pinball, and then you built a pretty epic like homebrew. I mean, for me, Tony Hawk Pro, the video games, because obviously this is what it's based on, is one hell of it. Like, I think you could talk to anyone. I mean, I'm 40 this year, born in 84. And I think we all hit that period where Tony Hawk Pro was there for a lot of people as teenagers. You'd rush home from school, you turn it on, and it was freaking addictive.
Yeah. Oh,
like, it doesn't matter how good you were or how bad you were. Getting the tapes, the music, the character select. It was a game that, like, literally every person that has ever played a PlayStation, whether they play religiously or not, had touched Tony Hawk.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, some of the stories that he's told about some of the royalty checks he was getting on this game, he didn't even realize it was as big as what it was.
Yeah.
But to grab all that, right? And for me, I've said it before on this channel, nostalgia is a very powerful thing. It can really, it's a bit of a time machine. As soon as you touch something that you remember or recognize, it transports you back for that instant, and you're playing it. And man, the whole time I watched a couple of streams of guys that had their rigs at Expo and put it over your game, and we were looking at that playfield, and I'll show some pictures in a sec. I felt like I was playing a PlayStation game, and I'm sure that's obviously what you're going for.
Yeah.
Run me through the decision to like build this. I'm going to do Homebrew. It's going to be Tony Hawk. And like, was it like a midnight idea or something? Like, how did it all start?
So I've had a lot of hobbies over the years. So when I get into a hobby, I just can't do the thing. I have to take it to that next level. So the natural progression of playing pinball was, okay, I want to build one of these. Yeah. So I want to learn everything I can about it. I got a few games. I learned how they work. It's really intimidating when you first get a pinball machine and you lift it up and you go, oh my gosh, look at, all these boards. And so once I got over that and realized, like, it's some power supplies, it's some boards. If you're mechanically inclined, it's not too bad. I was like, okay, I can do this. So once I knew I wanted to build a game, I thought, well, what would my dream theme be? And Tony Hawk was just the obvious choice. So I looked online, I looked on Pinside, and people had talked about it before, but nobody had ever, built it. So I said, okay, I want, if I'm going to bring this game out, and I want to make sure that, people enjoy it as well as I do, then I wanted to make sure it was a theme that people really wanted. And I knew people, myself included, that was the decision behind that. So as far as the layout goes, I wanted to make a world under glass. And I wanted to make sure that the theme matched the layout and that the layout matched the theme. So it wasn't just shots that were, reminiscent of the game. I wanted to make sure that the shots were in the game. So I booted up the remake on my Switch, and I knew I wanted it to be Warehouse. I knew I wanted it to be from the first game. And I would just stop and look and go, okay, what's iconic about this? What do you remember about this? So if you look at the center of the playfield, the shot that has the transfer gap and then has like the drop in, that's the very first thing you do in the game, is you drop in, and then there's that channel gap right there. The big red rail is right in front of you when you come down that ramp. So I wanted to make sure that the red rail was like front and center in the game. The half pipe, everybody knows the half pipe off to the right of the level when you drop in. Well, the half pipe is on the right on the play field. I sprinkled a little bit of 2 in there from the hangar level, so you can grind over the half pipe. And then the barrels that are the pop bumpers on the upper play field, those are from the second game as well. But I just wanted to make sure that the theme fit, the layout fit the theme. And hopefully I did it justice. I like it.
Yeah, like honestly, as soon as I saw it for the first time, I was like, I remember that. I remember that. And yeah, that kind of as soon as you start that jump in the game and you kind of dive straight into the skate is like you captured that so well. And I think
Thank you.
one of the interesting parts of the whole world under glass, and where probably a lot of companies miss, is running with a theme and doing it justice, and really creating, like, I'm a sucker for upper playfields and toys and mechs.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of pinball, like, there's some good themes out there, but they don't have a lot of toys and mechs or an upper playfield, or, you know, like, if you're going to make a world under glass, put as much as you can in it, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think, you know, you captured that, the cool little taxi, which is that's just got a lock ball with the taxi.
It's a captive ball.
Captive ball, sorry. With you hit the wheel. I liked, at first I kind of thought you didn't have any artwork on the playfield, but then I realized that was like concrete.
Yeah.
We're gonna do like warehouse. As soon as we kind of got a better picture quality, I noticed that, and I thought that was pretty cool, because I kind of feel that everyone always criticizes art on a playfield, and this is the only time that I think you could get away with not having any art on the playfield.
I lucked out on that one. Yeah.
Because it suits it. Like it really adds to the atmosphere and creating that, you know, that world under glass. Obviously, we've touched on obviously the fact that just walking up to the machine, and as you can see in this photo of you guys, I'll start calling you Pinball Jesus with that hairstyle.
Oh, thank you.
Love it. You know, like, you look at that and you go, I can see the video game. Like, it's, and as a game that people walk past, whether it's in an arcade or, you know, in the middle of an expo, I mean, it draws you in, right? Even if it wasn't playing and didn't have the music. So I think the way you've captured it, and, you know, the loops and the ramps, it is extremely captivating. So, you know, my hat goes off to you there with the way it's come up. I think, like, looking at the attention to detail and the uniqueness of the shots, which obviously were there, like you said, you touched on, to try and capture those elements of the game. I mean, crafting all the bits and bobs. I mean, there's obviously, I'm assuming, 3D printed parts for the ramps and stuff.
Yeah, all the ramps are 3D printed, and then I painted them to make them look like wood grain.
Yeah, that's that would catch a lot of people out, because I reckon a lot of people go, "That's wood. That looks like wood," because it doesn't look 3D printed when you really look at it. And then look, there's some cool mechanisms. Obviously, you know, this skateboard reminds me a lot of the ring in Avengers, where you knock to open the portal.
Yeah.
Talk us through that. Like, what did you? Obviously, you knew you wanted to put certain mechs in there. How did you come up with that one in particular?
So that was that came from me trying to figure out how to do tricks in the game. So I thought, like, maybe I could have like a skateboard above the half pipe, and when you go by it, it like hits it like a spinner. And I was like, well, that'd be cool, but I don't think it would look right there. And then I thought to myself, well, okay, there's games that have that spinner just like front and center right there. But none of them have a spinner within a spinner, you know? So I had the turntable idea with the skateboard in the center, so that you can do kick flips, heel flips, front side shove-its, backside shove-its, and then also varial flips just from that one mech. So that mech right there, you can do 8 tricks on just from that one, instead of it being just, you know, ripping a spinner or hitting a turntable. It's a lot deeper than it looks.
Yeah, wow. And that's got like, I remember hearing correctly, has that got like skateboard bearings in it?
Yeah, so you can see him in the picture there. That's like, that was like a design choice that that was kind of more for me than anything else. But so it's got the 2 bearings holding up the skateboard where you can do the flip tricks on, and then the bearings that actually hold the turntable to the playfield underneath of it, that has bearings in there as well, connected to the axle. And then I needed to counterweight the turntable as well. So when we shot these pictures, the turntable was actually spinning, but what it's supposed to do is face the player. So I have 3 skateboard bearings underneath of that turntable to face the player, so that the board and the posts on the side of that turntable are always in the correct spot, so that you can make those shots from the left flipper.
So basically, as soon as you've knocked it and it's kind of finished, it will go back to a standard position.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's smart. It's interesting because even some of the I've never skateboarded in my life. I don't know any of the terminology. We have some very good skateboarders in Australia. We don't have good breakdancers, but we've got good skateboarders. But like,
good.
it doesn't matter. Like for me, like I'd buy one of these, even though like when people have space that's limited and obviously money that's limited, it is so unique that you don't need to even know the lingo. You don't even need to be a good skateboarder. And I think that's a real unique gem in a theme, because a lot of people buy on theme. And when you see these kind of voting things about, would you buy an avatar or would you buy this? And a lot of people, for instance, wouldn't buy an avatar because they couldn't connect with the theme. This is very unique because obviously we'd all like to probably try and skateboard. I think as kids, we all probably did, whether you were into it or not. But I think having these cool mechs where, like you said, you wanted to feel like you were skateboarding, right?
Right.
And I think that's what will let any child or 40-year-old grown man that's always wished he could skateboard an opportunity to become a skateboarder, because it's extremely unique. And every time I look somewhere, I keep finding something. Like the tape, obviously the targets with tape written on it.
Mhm.
That's a cool shot, because that actually goes to the back. I think we've got a.
That is the drop-in that you just showed. The tape is kind of on the picture you showed before. You can kind of see it.
Yeah, I'll go back. Let's have a look at. Oh, this is a video. That's right. This is cool.
Oh yeah.
Your little save there. I mean, we'll play that again. Where it comes down. Hold your flipper. It reminds me a bit of Foo Fighters, where obviously the post saves the ball. But that whole, like, you could, I mean, it's pretty hypnotic. You can watch it over and over again, because the way it kind of jumps. And again, that's something in pinball we don't really see, is when you've got a little ramp that sends the ball airborne, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's a representation of being a skateboarder.
Yeah, I wanted to, like, the theme integration was trying to figure out, like, how do I kind of subvert the standard design of a pinball machine? And most of the time when your ball drains, it drains, Another good example is like Jersey Jack on the Wizard of Oz table. You have that like pop bumper with those targets when you drain, and there's a few games that mess with the out lanes. But I knew when I was designing the game that this was one of the principles that I designed the game around. I knew I wanted this mech, and I knew I wanted that spinner mech. But as you can see, it uses the scoop as the jump. And Avatar beat me to it. They announced their game, and I was watching the trailer, and I was like, "Oh my god, no!" But nobody had made a Tony Hawk game, luckily. So,
hey, you've documented your process, so I'll still give you the win anyway.
thank you.
I think this was cool. This is what I was looking for. So it's a very smooth and hypnotic transition, because you look at it kind of do its thing and then it hits it again. Very unique. Is that one of the parts that you've actually, because I know you've a couple of things that you've put patents on?
That's one of them, yes. Yeah, and then the pop-up ramp.
Yeah. Very cool, very cool. Do you kind of like, obviously now that it's kind of complete as such, do you kind of go, oh, I wish I could have added this, or have you played it now, or so many people played it that you've kind of gone, oh, maybe I should add one more thing in?
Yes. Yeah. The game was never really play tested. We got the game, and I say we, my best friend Wes is the guy who wrote the code for it. and he doesn't live in St. Louis anymore. He moved to the Northeast, and so he was programming the game remotely. And we had this issue where the game was crashing after every game. So we'd have to like restart MPF. And that morning, the morning of Expo, 30 minutes before the door opened, we got the game to work. He was remoted in. He was programming my computer through my fiance's phone's hotspot while I was talking to him on my phone. I mean, it was nuts. So the fact that it lasted through Expo and that like it really kind of went off without a hitch was a miracle. I mean, that being said, there was a few things that stuck out to me that I took notes on that I'm going to fix for TPF. So I'm going to be at TPF with the game as well.
I think probably the most obvious thing would be that when it gets played for so long, the flippers would get a bit weak over time, right?
Yes. Yeah. That flipper fade is something that like not only the homebrew guys battle, but also the major manufacturers too. I mean, if it's just constant, you know, with those coils heating up, you're just not going to be able to get as powerful as a flip. So
yeah, a couple of my friends have got fans on some of their games, especially like Avengers. They reckon that needs it because it's just it does obviously cop it. I found the picture. So this whole tape section here is cool. So we hit the 4 targets. It hits up tape. We then go up. This flipper, I don't think I've ever seen that before in pinball. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I haven't either. I don't know.
I'm sure someone in the comments may correct us, but I doubt it. That technically is like a diverter, right?
Yeah. So when I designed the game, originally it was supposed to be a flipper, but the physics just didn't work right. And there wasn't really a whole lot of room. I already had to push the game really far back into the cabinet. So if you notice, the game actually goes back further than what most games do.
Yeah.
So it just ended up being a diverter. So if you hold the left flipper, it diverts it, and then you can do that drop-in sequence that you showed earlier. But if you don't hold the left flipper, then it makes it go over to the right. So normally it would just go over to the right, and then you have the pop bumpers there, which are the barrels, and that's one of the objectives, is destroy the barrels. But if you light tape, so if you light TAPE, those stand-up targets, and then you shoot that center
that one there
ramp right there, you can see that flipper over to the right, and that is another diverter. So that opens up, and then it brings the ball behind the warehouse and then grinds a rail and then hits the secret tape. And you can kind of see it next to the I think there's another picture if you scroll like over a couple. There you go. So you can see that secret tape right there to the left of the T target. So that's floating. That spinner is floating above that outer loop shot, and you can't hit that spinner in normal play unless you light tape and then hit that ramp, and then that will off of the grind rail, it jumps through the air, and then it hits that secret tape, and it plays a sound that goes with it.
I mean, you've captured even from the character select to the music and the noises and stuff. Like, I genuinely, if I shut my eyes, I thought I was playing PlayStation.
Thank you.
And I think that's obviously that, tick with it. That's the aim, right?
Yeah.
I love what the ball does in here when it goes, because obviously it's got a mind of its own. When it goes into this area, I thought I had a video, but maybe I think it might have been on one of the streams.
It was on the stream. I don't think we caught it when we were doing this kind of photo shoot here.
Yeah, this is a cool shot. It's something satisfying about a ball going up and around. It's one of my favorite, similar to one of my favorite shots in Avengers with Marvel, the Marvel shot.
Yep.
Which is obviously extremely addictive to do. Look, I mean, for me, it was just, I think that the tone in the game, the colors, and obviously knowing that watching the ball kind of move around, it was moving very different to the way a pinball normally moves. And I guess there's an argument there that this really is a bit different to a pinball game, that it's more a Tony Hawk game that happens to be a pinball machine.
That was the goal. I mean, that
right?
if I did that, then that was what I set out to do. So
Which is, you look, it's unique because for me, I think, again, when you've got a game that will appeal to everyone, doesn't matter how old you are, um, you know, whether you're into the hobby or not, and having something that is just so captivating that keeps pulling you into that you want to keep pressing start on. You know, I think to me, it's probably one of the best homebrews I've seen in a long time. Personally, there are obviously some homebrews that have one best homebrew. I don't really call a retheme a homebrew as complete from the ground up. I think it's a great effort, don't get me wrong. And there's some fantastic rethemes. But I always find something real interesting and captivating about a homebrew that starts with just wood. And then, you know, you're mucking around. Like, talk me through like that process of you getting the plywood and going, all right, where am I putting my first shot? Like, you know, it was a
I
bit of
have
sticky
it. You want to
tape,
see it?
ramps. What's that?
I have it. Do you want to see it?
Oh, sure.
All right,
Why
give me a
not?
sec.
Why not?
Put my headphones back in here so I can hear it. Okay, so this was the original whitewood. So I didn't start off with like a kit. I got the other one that's the final one from Trident Pinball from Ernie. But like all it was, you know, drawing out what I wanted, what shots I wanted to have on there. And then you can see like the scoop was originally here and that didn't work. And I wanted to have it over here and, you know, for the drop in and everything. But yeah, it was literally pen to plywood and figuring out all the shots. I knew I wanted the screen here. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to see and because I erased most of them, but like figuring out the flipper geometry was tough. So I had to draw like lines from the flippers and go, okay, I know I can hit this shot. And so it was a lot of trial and error because I've obviously, you know, never designed a pinball machine. I haven't messed with like virtual design like VPX or anything. But yeah, it was fun.
That was my next question. So you did it all basically touch and feel. There was no design on CAD or any of that.
No,
Yeah, cool.
I had like a little sketch that like had the idea, but it wasn't really doing it on the piece of plywood that I just got from Home Depot. It's not even a good piece of plywood. That was really where it came to life.
Yeah, right. Okay. So many questions. So all right. So we skateboard spinner. Obviously, you've got a paint on that. Awesome. The outlane ollie ramp. There's paint on that as well. So obviously, you activate the quarter pipe and the ollie back onto the playfield through the flippers to save your ball. That is just a very addictive. Can you do that all the time, or is it like in food that you have to have that activated?
So if you make the shot with the diverter, it'll
Yeah.
automatically pop that ramp up for you. And then it holds it for a few seconds. And then if you don't if you don't hold the flipper up, you'll either drain, or if it like goes back onto that quarter pipe, then it'll lower and drain as well. But that was one of the things that I want to add for TPF is a center button that activates that ramp so
Oh,
that
cool.
the lower playfield, the outlanes are actually designed so that either direction that you drain, if you drain from the right or if you drain from the left, the ball will be able to hit that ramp. So if you drain on the right-hand side, it'll actually come back up on the left, almost like another half pipe. And
Yep.
then you can come back down and save your ball like that too.
Right. And I mean, ramps and wireforms, I'm assuming you've gone through like 50, 100 of them to try and work out your best one.
Yeah, I mean, I it was a lot. I have a bucket of one of those buckets underneath of my workbench over there is completely
Yeah.
filled with 3D prints that just didn't make the cut. The wire forms were a huge learning curve. I'm, you know, by no means an expert welder, especially with the $150 flux core welder that I use to make all these. And I used a pinch welder as well. But Yeah, I'm by no means an expert in any of that stuff. So, but I love learning. So, you want to talk about like a crash course, man? I learned so much on this, and I'm really really glad I did it.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've been toying with the idea of homebrew for a while, both retheme to kind of, put your foot in it, and then a full concept, which I've done a whole portfolio on and stuff. And it is very daunting. So my hat goes off to you. I mean, especially considering you're so new to pinball as such. But you like, I mean, you got to be good at obviously the technical aspect of it, because like with me, when one of the things goes wrong on my machine, I've got to wait till someone can come over and fix it for me, right? So I think what I've noticed, and speaking to a lot of people that have done homebrews, a lot of these guys are tinkerers, and I think that you have the upper hand on that aspect of it, because if you weren't a tinkerer, you kind of already behind the eight ball, right?
Being a tinkerer helps. Yeah,
Yeah,
tinkerer is the perfect I guess description for what I do. Is I have my hands in a lot of different little things. I'm a
yeah.
master of none of them, but I got the job done. So
Yeah, cool. All right, so we spoke about the loop wire forms, the drop in ramp. That's sick. We spoke about that. The half pipe grind. I mean, when you hit the outer loop and you grind over the half pipe, that's extremely addictive. And I think that's probably um, uh, uh, reading a lot of comments of people that were at Expo. It was that and the drop in that everyone loved, and obviously the skateboard spinner everyone talks about. I just want to make sure we haven't missed anything. Secret tape collect.
the drop target bank, that's just you hit the drop targets AIR and then 900, and
Yeah,
that's the objective to do the 900.
the 900.
The rules of the game weren't completely flushed out for Expo either. So there's actually a 2-minute timer on it, just like the original game, and it gives
Oh,
you 5 objectives that you have to hit. So each ball is going to be completely different from the last one.
yeah,
You're going to have different shots to hit. And that was another thing that was unique too, like adding that timer element on there. There's a multi-ball mode that we didn't get finished either. All of that stuff should be ready by TPF. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, the loop. So that wire form that does
yeah,
like that loop. So if you hit that just right, you can hit that loop and then it will ride up the bowl, and you can kind of see it right there, and it lands on the upper play field, and then it
yeah.
can
Just
go
there.
to that red rail, or it can fall out next to it. There's kind of
Yeah,
like a little randomness up there on that upper play field, but hitting that shot is just so satisfying. And like
yeah,
the if you like look up videos of Tony Hawk hitting the loop, and just how sketchy that is, and like they throw the pads in there to make sure the guys don't really hurt themselves, they while they're practicing it. And I
yeah,
wanted to make sure that the bottom of that wire form was open, so like the ball's not locked in there, it's all centripetal force when it goes around.
yeah.
um and the same thing with that transfer gap too. That one doesn't have a wire to save the ball. So if you don't get that shot, it's just going to fall out of there. But I definitely wanted a loop in there, because that's like another part of that. I can't remember if it's the first game or the second game. With the very end of it, it shows Tony Hawk going through the loop, and that was also like
Yeah.
a level element as well. But uh, having that in there, that was like the best way to do it, just so you could still see the ball. Like I didn't want to make it out of wood or anything.
Yeah.
And growing up, my dream was actually to design roller coasters. That was what I wanted to do as a kid, and that's why I originally like went to school. That was the dream. And then finding pinball, it's like, oh, I could just make like a little roller coaster in here,
A
man.
little one. You would have been good at Roller Coaster Tycoon then on the PC.
Oh man, I have a sealed copy up there, so I could.
Oh, nice. There you go. Well, I mean, and that's I've always said that roller coasters. I mean, I know there's been some roller coaster themed pinballs, but that is I mean, it's basically the same thing, right? Like it's a mini version of a roller coaster. And watching, I've watched a lot of streams where I love watching the ball in this area where it can obviously go up, and the fact that at every point you kind of can see the ball, you kind of don't lose it.
Mhm.
It's visible all the time. The one thing I wanted to ask you about was hit the hydrant. So
Yeah.
blow past the spinner and hit the hydrant to activate it. What does that actually do?
So that was another thing that didn't get finished. It's just an objective.
Yeah.
But the hydrant is supposed to be on one of those like Elvira jumping frog mechs.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So the hydrant's supposed to shoot up.
Shoot up.
And a testament to the homebrew community. There was a guy there named Nick as well, who I was playing his game, and he had those in his game. Turbo Time, I think it was the car themed one that had the
Mm.
V8 mech in the center. That was super complicated. I mean, it was awesome. But I was like, dude, these are supposed to be in my game, man. And I went on Marco, and they didn't have any. He was like, oh man, because I bought them all, dude. So he was like, here, just take them. Here's one for you, and the piano wire you'll need for it. So that'll be ready for TPF. But yeah, man, like it was just so funny because he was the reason I couldn't get my hands on it.
So that shoots up to represent like water sending it to the sky, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
there's an
yeah.
LED that's supposed to go in there too.
Yeah, sick. Yeah, right, cool. Because I found that interesting. I was like, I wonder if that's gonna like, it's meant to be. Because I remember in the game when you knock them, they go flying.
Yeah.
The taxi captive ball, obviously, we spoke about. So there was no multi balls at the expo, was there at all?
No.
No. Yeah. Okay. I
The
mean, multi ball in this would be sick.
the multi-ball mode is reflective of the game as well.
Yeah.
So basically, if you finish those 5 objectives within that 2-minute timer, you start your multi-ball mode, and that starts a ball saver until that 2-minute timer is up. So say you get a really lucky draw and you're able to complete your objectives in like 45 seconds, right? It'll send those 2 more balls out, and you'll have a multi-ball for 2 minutes. Once that 2-minute timer is up, you're in overtime, just like you would be in the game, where as long as you can keep your combo going, you can skate as long as you want until you bail or you land.
Yeah.
So in that multi-ball mode, once the 2-minute timer is up, if you drain one of those 3 balls, your turn is over. That's like bailing out, right? So if you're really good at catching up or just keeping those balls in play, you can go past that 2-minute timer. But again, that wasn't ready for Expo.
Yeah,
I built this in under a year. So
I was going to say, that was my next question. I believe that you, from an interview you did, that it was a year. I was like, that's pretty impressive, dude.
Yeah, I look back at like my photos, and it was a little bit under a year, but a year.
So is your mate that helped you with the code, has he coded before?
Never a pinball machine, and he's not a pinball guy. So he is a buddy of mine that that we connected over electronics projects, and he has done coding in the past in Godot, which is what we used for this one. So we used the fast pinball system, which 10 out of 10, I highly recommend.
Yep.
If anybody wants to start, Aaron from Fast is fantastic. The support that him and his team and all the other homebrew guys offer is unmatched. So he was able to read the documentation on MPF on the Fast website, and was able to get a feel for how to code this thing. And what I did was I typed everything up in English. I was like, okay, this is if this, then this. I want this to be if you get this, it's this many points. And then he translated that into computer. So
yeah, wow. Because there's coders in pinball that have been doing this for a long time that aren't good coders. so that's impressive.
I haven't been in the game long enough to know any of that. I know there's some games that I wish certain things were changed, and I'd love to change the code on some older games to make them I would love a checkpoint. The old was that Daddy Easter Sega? One of the same, but
it's Sega, I think.
It's just a one-shot game, but I love rally racing, so that's one I would love, but I just couldn't rip that that one ramp over and over again. So
Yeah.
that'd be something I'd like to get into as well.
Yeah, no, look, there's some good. Look, I was probably being a bit harsh, but there's a lot of games that you kind of go, oh, come on, you could have done this, or can we get more code, or can you fix the scoring? So it is. I can imagine for someone who's not even to pinball to obviously find it a little bit daunting. But um, the game was obviously popular. Like the queues were pretty massive. Even when you were doing the thing with Raccoon Pinball, the live stream where he had his rig.
Yeah.
Like you guys were in the queue, you were in your own queue waiting to
Yeah.
play the game. And a lot of comments that people liked, and it's something that I feel that you don't see enough in pinball is this screen. Because like if I've got a screen, I'm not looking up where all the screens are. I'm looking at the play field, right? And one of the things that I've always liked is like you've got the screen in the playing field. That is just a copy of what's happening at the top.
Yeah, so it just reflects what is going on the
Yeah.
DMD up there, but it's also angled, like you can see in that picture, it's
Yeah,
angled
yeah.
at the player so that you can
Yeah.
see it properly. But you're right. I mean, a lot of games it's just so hard to even read what's on that screen
Yeah.
up there, and so I wanted to make sure that the goals were easy to read. You know what you're supposed to do. You know how much time you have. You know what song is playing. That's cool too. And what your score is as well.
Do you find that, how do you find, obviously being on an angle would help with the glare. Do you find any glare or anything reflecting at
Yeah,
all?
so like it helps with the glare, but also the viewing angle of like LCDs, because getting those like 7-inch LCDs, like some of them are pretty good, but like the one that most people use for like Raspberry Pi projects and everything, the viewing angles on it like aren't the best. So I wanted to make sure that the player had like the best viewing angle on that.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I mean, it's something that I think, we may see in Spike 3 with Stern with multiple screens.
That'd be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're a sucker for upper play fields, and like I am too. That's why my game had to have it, but also lower play fields.
Yeah.
And that was an idea I threw around, but also once the screen thing popped in my head, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I hope to see that in other games in the future. Communicating the information to the player, you can do a lot with lights and sounds, but just being able to quickly like look and see, okay, I need to accomplish, X, Y, Z, was actually pretty easy to implement as well.
Yeah, cool. I mean, the one of the things that obviously, which I'll show now, when you build something like this and the whole community backs it, is a fantastic thing. But then when you get these guys that come along and
Look at that. That's so cool.
I get called a Stern fanboy. I am a Stern fanboy. All my games are Stern. But to have these guys come and play and enjoy it, what was that like? Because obviously we can see George there having a good play. He's in the zone right there.
Oh yeah. It surreal. I mean, the whole Expo thing was surreal. Getting the game done in a year, getting it to Expo, getting it working 30 minutes before the show, having it last for 3 days, having Barry right there, having the guys from Stern come over, the Jersey Jack guys. I mean, every player in the game showed up to the booth, played it, loved it. I got a picture with as many of them as I could. It was incredible. I mean, you can't put it into words.
I mean, for me, I still to this day get starstruck that I spent an hour talking to George Gomez on Zoom about his career and what's going on. So to think that you build something that these people that you obviously look up to or have such a big influence in this hobby, for them to touch and feel and enjoy something you're doing must be a pretty surreal experience. But
oh yeah,
you had Kerry there as well.
Yeah, he was there with Roger Sharp.
Oh, yeah. He I always tease Kerry because he streamed with Alice and he took the jackpot voice for Alice and he did a voiceover where he goes jackpot Kerry and it's the speediest and now it's saved as one of my ringtones on my phone. But, but he loved you. I mean, they all loved it. The Tony Hawk was just
thank you.
Something that everyone talked about so much. I mean, one of the questions I think everyone's going to want to ask is Tony Hawk himself. Obviously, like, did you reach out to him? Has he seen it? Like, what's the story behind that?
So he shared it on his social media story, so like his Instagram story.
Yeah.
And I missed it because I was, driving to Expo and getting the game ready and everything. And people were coming up to me and they're like, Did you see Tony Hawk put it on a story? And I was like, no, man, I've been busy. But yeah, he shared it. He's aware of it. I've sent some emails. We'll see what happens.
Well, he loves pinball because there's some videos of him going like pinball museums and arcades.
Yeah.
He's
I think
obviously
he's
into
got a
pinball.
skate ball as well, if I'm not mistaken. So he is aware of it. I'd love to work with his team and with a major manufacturer and figure out how to turn this homebrew into a viable machine for the mass market. No, my heart isn't set on any one major manufacturer. I've been in this only a little bit of time, but every single manufacturer, every game I've played, I've just been, every new release I love. Like I don't understand, kind of when new games come out, there's always negativity surrounding a new release. And it's like people kind of thrive on that. And it's like, dude, it's pinball. Like this is awesome. Like every new game that comes out is sick. So, like Barry with Dutch, you want to talk about a world under glass, man. Like they took that to the next level. Every single plastic, that would normally be covering up some lights is molded and painted. And I played Big Lebowski with the Electric Playground guys a few nights ago, which, by the way, I was in their booth. Electric Playground, they're amazing toppers. I'm sure you've seen them, the Twilight Zone topper. But Robin and Alec were nice enough to feature my game in their booth, which was really nice because it gave everybody an opportunity to like see it, right there on the corner of the booth. But all the major manufacturers put out some amazing stuff, and I'd love to work with any of them to bring this game to the market, because it's sitting here is cool, but only I get to play it. So and the people that come over. So
well, I mean, it's kind of like even using even Chris Turner's Ninja Eclipse, right? Like, so he's built something, he evolved it over multiple visits to, I think he went to Expo and made changes and that. And then he was like, I can do this myself. So, he ran with doing it himself, right? And he's now officially sold 100 Ninja Eclipse. I can
such a cool
guarantee
story,
you'd sell a lot more than 100 Tony Hawks, let me tell you. And I think Chris Turner could have easily sold more than 100. Obviously, he's being conservative.
Right, and that's
But
probably just a limitation with what he can do with his team and everything. But I played it; it's a fantastic game as well.
yeah,
So
yeah. I'm really looking forward to talking to Chris because anything that's kind of unique, and it's a challenge when you're running a theme that isn't based on a theme and that everyone knows is even more challenging.
I would assume so. I mean, getting the licensing, I mean, because you have multiple skaters in there, you have music from all those games, but I know they just did the remaster, so that came out just a few years ago, so that license is probably still attainable, but judging from the the YouTube comments on the stream and everything, and just the amount of like just outpouring of support, people found my website and were sending me emails and just saying like, dude, I love this, how do I buy one? Saying you can't right now, I'm sorry. I can't sell this. Is the game is mine, but the theme is not. So I'd love that. I'd love to be able to walk into an arcade and just like walk up to that game and there it is.
Well, George Gomez, you're probably watching. Make it happen. Come on. Look, I honestly, genuinely, I think when you've got a bit of a golden goose, because like I said, it's a theme that it doesn't matter whether you're into pinball or not. The shops are captivating. Everyone wants to play pinball. I mean, my daughter plays Tony Hawk. She played it when she was like 5 years old, and and to her, like she's like, oh, the graphics are a bit weird because obviously back then a PlayStation 1 doesn't look that great today.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't put it down, like she kept playing it and playing it. And, I think it's a bit of a golden goose because a lot of people won't buy a Venom or a Star Wars because they don't like the theme, or they won't buy a WrestleMania or a Ninja Turtles because they don't like the theme. But I think a skateboarding game, everyone knows Tony Hawk, even if you're not into skateboard.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's a very unique homebrew idea. But yeah, look, again, my hat goes off to you, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And I really feel that in probably a year's time, we'll be having a different conversation, which we may be working on your next homebrew or in your next game, I should say. It might not be a homebrew then.
There is another one in the works already. So
Oh, nice,
yeah.
nice. Is that a like a theme that everyone knows, or is it a made up one?
It's an original theme this time around.
Oh,
But it is based around something that a lot of people love. So
yeah, awesome. Well, that's there's interesting reading a lot of the comments on some of the homebrew videos where everyone's gone, "Oh, I want a Beavis and Butthead game," or "I want a Journey music game," or I'd love to see a Bill and Ted's game.
oh, sick. Yeah.
That'd be sick. Music, it's quirky. Everyone would, gravitate to that. A Fifth Element game, that'd be sick. So there are just so many themes that obviously people can throw a dart at. But again, I think you've nailed this one. And as someone who in the 90s played a lot of video games, it is everything about it screams nostalgia. And even though people today, like young kids, maybe in their 20s, might not have ever seen that color scheme or the logo or whatever, they still know Tony Hawk skating. So, I reckon we'll be having a different conversation in a year's time.
I hope so. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. And I mean, to piggyback off of your point, you wish you could see this game or you wish you could see that game, and that's a topic that comes up a lot. Really, anybody can do it. It's your game, whatever you make might not be the quality of the pro games that are out there, but it doesn't have to be, especially if it's just for you. So I say go for it, man. I mean, the reason this game exists is because I said I want a Tony Hawk game. It doesn't exist, so I made it happen. So
yeah,
you can do
it. There you go. Well, look, Nick, thanks for, I know it's Sunday morning for you, and I appreciate you taking the time to have a chat to me. And we got there in the end. I think we're just on 50 minutes. So I'll let you go, and I'm sure we'll be talking in the near future, and there'll be more info, and we'll do an update because obviously you're going to make changes, right? So
yeah,
we'll do an update,
TPF.
and when's that again?
March,
so
middle of March sometime. I got to look it up.
Cool. So we got some time. Maybe we'll try and get Tony Hawk to come and visit you. Get him to come and play the game.
Please. We
saw Keanu Reeves playing with John Wick. It'd be cool to see Tony Hawk playing Tony Hawk.
Oh my God. Yeah. Holy smokes.
And I'm sure he'll go, make me one.
If he wants one, man, I'm down.
Oh, good. All right, Nick. Thank you very much, man. Thank you to everyone. Obviously, subscribe, leave some comments. I'll get some info from Nick. We'll chuck it into the comment section. So